there.
There,
So we
there's
had
that one.
them printed
Sean's
out, but
there. What's this one? Corp DNA. Is that one
Ready?
somewhere?
Gentlemen, you ready?
Yes, sir.
That's the only
Good
one.
evening. Welcome to the October 11th, 2022 Murrysville Planning Commission meeting. Would please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patty, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Lemke?
Here.
Ms. Hoy?
here,
Mr. Midal?
Here.
Mr. Patrick?
Here.
Mr. Olszewski? Mr. Kearns?
Here.
Mr. Levecki?
Here.
Okay, we have minutes from September 13th, 2022.
I'm making a motion that we don't approve those minutes as they're written. We have a question and we've not been able to answer it, so
All right, so we're tabling those.
table the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have a. Yes. We have a period on the agenda for public comments. I assume most of you are here to speak or hear about the public hearing items that are on the agenda tonight. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to bring to our attention right now? Okay. We have 5 public hearings to go through tonight. There is a stenographic record being kept of those, of the hearing. And I would just ask anyone who is about to testify or speak on any of the subjects tonight, please rise and Mr. Lemke will swear you in.
Everybody who thinks they might speak, please stand and raise your right hand. For the testimony you're about to give tonight, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, the first item on the agenda is a hearing on CU 822, the DNA Corporate Park and Retail Center. This is at Manor and Wilson Road, tax map parcel 4921-000-087. This is for a major excavation in the business district. The way we will conduct the hearing is we'll allow the applicant to speak and make his presentation, and then anyone who wishes to comment further, please come up to the podium and give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. And we'll go through them one by one.
Good evening. My name is Ray Gusty from Farragut McCarty Gray. To address the concerns on the major excavation, we have a total cut of 254,000 cubic yards plus 35,500 cubic yards of topsoil for a total excavation of 289,500 cubic yards. That's round numbers. We are slightly out of balance, but we can raise the site approximately 2 inches to balance the cut and fill. The issue will be getting rid of the topsoil. There's approximately 34,000 cubic yards of topsoil that needs to be either sold or given away, or we can't do that. It would have to be hauled to an approved disposal area. There was also one concern that the municipal staff had about this cut slope below the Buckeye Pipeline. The Buckeye Pipeline runs in this direction. There's a quite a good size cut slope over in here. We had
Ray, could you hold up for 1 second? Jim, do we have the laser pointer?
Yeah.
And Ray could point at that so that everyone can see what he's referring to. Good, Ray. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's working.
you have the other sheet. There's the adjoining sheet. So the shaded areas are the shaded areas are the fill areas, and then the white areas are the cut. So this cut area in here, the Buckeye Pipeline is in this direction. This cut area in here, the municipal staff had a comment about the slope stability. We had construction engineering consultants do a slope stability analysis and found that it's stable. There's no issues with that cut.
All the cuts and fills are 2-to-1 slopes.
Yes. There on the DNA side near the back parking lot, there's a 3-to-1 slope, but basically they're all 2-to-1.
Okay.
So this is the future restaurant parcel. This is all cut. This is the future retail center. The majority of that is, or fill, I'm sorry. The retail center is mostly fill. There's a little bit of cut over here for the parking lot. It was pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, I'll try and answer them for you.
No, how are you coming with your ENS permits?
We still have to submit those yet.
Okay.
There's quite a fee involved with that, and Mr. Fusting would like to get some approvals first before we proceed with that, but we're ready to submit it.
Okay. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, do you have
No.
any questions? Members of the audience, do you have any comments or questions on this application? If there are no comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing on CU 822 DNA Corporate Office.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
The next item is a public hearing on Z322, Fishone Enterprises, Inc., to rezone approximately 54.6 acres on Westertown and Hilty Roads from RR to R1. And did you identify yourself, sir?
Yes. My name is Bill Sittig, and I represent the applicant. The applicant, Paul Fishione's here with us tonight, as well as Tony Carmassi, who's the engineer for the project. So if you'd like me to proceed, thank you. We were here informally for review with the Planning Commission, and then there's been work with staff. The certain considerations have been made. There's been a substantial amount of engineering that's been done on the site just to be able to validate what our approach is, and based on some of that feedback, there's been improvements to it and how it's actually going to operate in the how in the R1 district that it would work. I don't know if you have the zoning map.
It's gonna be hard to see up there, but this is the parcel right here. It's in yellow right there.
So I know we need to stay with the mic, so I'll repeat that. As indicated by Tony, that area in yellow is the property that we're talking about. It's a little bit in excess of 54 acres, and as you can see, it's surrounded by green. So on its face, it's a spot. So zones are spots, but it is an illegal spot zone. And what I did is I prepared a legal memo, submitted it to Mr. Morrison, and it's very clear that the RR district, which is the green surrounding this yellow, and the yellow itself are compatible. Even if you would have a very small spot, the fact that you'd have an R1 next to an RR, for the reasons I set out, they're not a spot zone. Now that's taking aside to the fact that having over 50 acres in and of itself doesn't make it makes it too big of a spot to be an illegal spot zone. But basically the analysis is whenever you do an RR versus an R1, you have to look at, is there a rational basis for it? And under the zoning ordinance, the RR and R1 are very, very close. The uses are nearly identical. the bulk and area restrictions are nearly identical. And the major difference has to do with density. And when you look at the definition of the RR, the main distinction as set forth in the description for each of the districts for the RR rural residential is it's intended to protect environmentally sensitive areas and portions of the municipality that are not otherwise suitable for development at higher densities. And then it goes on to talk about the fact that in those areas where the needs for traffic facilities and utilities are low. And that's what we've seen when we've looked at it, for example, under the oil and gas ordinances. That area of the municipality is basically not served by the primary utilities, sanitary and water. So when you don't have, that's really the primary distinction between the RR and the R1. And what we're going to show you is that this is an appropriate area to be R1, not only because the topography makes it difficult to develop for any density under the RR, but because the utilities and traffic work and make it appropriate. And overall, what I've mentioned before when we've presented the plan is the idea as the infrastructure moves out, and this happens in municipalities. It happened in large areas like Westview Water went out to Franklin Park and got across 79. So you had wholesale redevelopment or development, intense development on that side of 79. So if you'd have a public works project where your utilities, your sanitary in particular, was extended, you'd look at a wholesale remapping probably. Here we have an extension that was occasioned by development in the park that has on our doorstep literally sanitary and water that's readily attainable. And then with the roadway system, we're having one point of access. So and that's one of the things that we looked at is limiting the road, the length of the road to make it compatible. But what Mr. Fischione will describe is kind of the minimum he needs to do minimal lots, which is roughly 28 total lots, very high end. He's looking at costs of lots that are in the $250,000 plus. So even in the R1 district, even with this level of density, if you're doing it with utilities, which is the desired, again, we're getting away from the RR where we don't have septic, where we don't have wells. We're trying to have public systems. And that's just what the R1 district says. The R1 district says it's to provide development of residential uses at a relatively low density. And submit that for bedroom communities, this is more than relatively low. It's very low in the R1. But it's expected that this area will usually require off-site water and sewerage services, although initial development of single-family homes may not require immediate servicing. And this one off the bat has it. It's not as though we're in the path where it's going to be connected. It's here now, so it's actually on the more appropriate end of the R1 even, and arguably is closer to an R2 than it is to an RR because of the infrastructure. So that's the framework. Mr. Fischione, as he'll tell you, not only owns it, but he's putting his residence on this site. So he's designed it with that in mind. And if we could, we'd turn to Tony Carmassi. And Tony, I guess we'll have Paul first talk about what his vision of it is and then get into a little bit about the logistics of the site.
Thank you, Bill. And thanks to the Commission for allowing us to present here tonight. Next slide. This is the basic property information. 54 acres currently zoned RR with the intention of going to an R1 PRD. And as Bill said, roughly 28 lots on this. Next slide. So the background. I'm 66 years old and a 30-year resident of Murraysville, having spent the majority of that time in Fair Oaks. I'm also the business owner of a technology company located in Westmoreland County Industrial Park number 3. And still a distance runner running past this property, I always admired that part of the municipality. So the first parcel was acquired in 2013, and I bought the subsequent land in 2021. And over the last few years, I've done a lot of soul searching. Where do I want to spend the next part of my life? And as Bill indicated, this is where I want to build my forever house. So back in March of 2021, I made a decision to pursue developing the acreage. And we conducted an initial engineering evaluation. The output of that was a determination for the road network and the approximate lot layout. We also executed a formal streams and wetland delineation. And all of this work we've been conducting with the involvement of the municipality. And from the beginning, I want this to be win-win and considered the municipality of Murraysville to be a partner in this. And as Bill indicated, with the initial discussions, we've taken a lot of your input to heart and fed that back into the design process. So the land itself, first and foremost, the goal is to protect and respect the environment. It's beautiful property, and that needs to be paramount as the development goes on. It has sweeping vistas in a beautiful location, and the way that the layout that Tony will present, everything is secluded. All of the backyards will be exposed into the green space. The goal is pretty simple, to develop the highest quality life neighborhood in Murraysville. They're going to feature luxury estates on 1 acre plus lots with low density, high quality housing. Vision for the housing itself, there'll be custom designs. The contractors will be selected for their architectural expertise, using excellent craftsmanship and only the best building materials. And as Bill indicated, the price of the lots is going to start at $250,000. Packages will be at $1.2 million plus. The amenities are obvious. It'll be walking distance to MCP. Ideally, be able to walk over and listen to a concert at the amphitheater. It's also right across the street from the J.H. Walter Nature Reserve, which is just beautiful property, and minutes from the business district and the Franklin Regional Schools with all of their great activities. So with that, I will turn it over to Tony for the next part of the presentation.
So we looked at this property with you guys a couple times here now. We tried to address everything you've said going through here. So, yeah. So you can see here, we got one point of access here. We have water available by the park here, sanitaries at this parcel here, so we can easily connect to those. We really just want to make everyone happy. In order for this site to be developed, there are some steep slopes. We're taking that into account. We're going to be coordinating that with geotechnical engineers. As you can see, it's not too bad. There's some steep slopes in the middle of it here and along the back here. For stormwater control, we're proposing to put a basin right here. It's kind of a low point in the site. Have all the streets drained to that basin to control the street runoff, and each lot would be served by an on-lot sump. So we would effectively reduce the flow off this property in post conditions. It would keep it well separated. You wouldn't really see it. It would be, where is it? Here. It's all wooded right now. It's screened very well. It'll fit in well. It'll be nice, kind of secluded lots for the future homeowners. And I think it'll be an excellent addition to the township here.
if there are any questions, but, basically the density in the R1 would allow for these 28 lots, so it's basically 2 acres per lot. The design would be for, plus or minus 1 acre lots, basically 1 plus, but then the rest of it would be open space. So it is
To preserve that
preserve,
wooded area, that nice natural features of the site.
so
PRD.
it's pretty straightforward. All of the stormwater will be managed on site, not the public system. There's also, because of, as I understand it, the lay of the land, there's an opportunity through the design stage. There's still more property that's up gradient for gravity sewage, so you'd be able to do a little bit more just with this existing. And what we're talking about is you do incrementally extensions of a gravity system. This wouldn't require any pumping. This would all be gravity feed into the existing system. So it makes sense from a planning perspective, and as we go forward, may provide other opportunities to build on this in a smaller fashion without, really public improvements into the infrastructure.
You're aware that if this rezoning were approved, you would have to demonstrate via conventional zoning that you could get this number of lots. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Absolutely.
Well, and we've appreciated, my client has, is because he's not a developer. So he's taken to heart that there's a lot of challenges on this site, and building road is expensive, so.
Well, and when it gets into the grading, that's going to be something that's going to be looked at carefully. Okay, does any member of the Planning Commission have any comments or questions?
What's the smallest lot size as it's laid out in your concept here?
The smallest lot size we have is 30,000 square feet is the minimum lot size on this.
You've got to use a microphone.
30,000 square feet is the minimum lot size on this,
So we're about 3/4 of an acre.
approximately.
Any other questions, comments from the Planning Commission? Members of the audience, do you have any comment, anyone wishing to comment on this? Please come forward and use the microphone. No? Okay. No further comments or questions?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Move along to the next public hearing, which is ZU4. Whoops.
That's okay. She wants to get their names.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is Z422, Fox Jr. Development to rezone approximately 1 acre of land at 4075 William Penn Highway from MU mixed use to B zoning district. Mr. Fox, is
I
someone?
moved the older meetings out of the current file, Mike.
Yeah, I took them out. You mean the ones you had me drag?
Yeah.
Voice of God.
I'm not going to say a word.
Hey, sir, give us your name, sir.
My name is Robert Ammond. I'm the attorney for Mr. Fox as well as Dr. DiBiase. And I have to apologize for Dr. DiBiase. He had a family emergency that he wasn't able to be here tonight. But they sit side by side, and I think
Microphone.
Pick it out of the holder there. And yeah, so you can use it. There you go.
just like
public
Jay
can
Leno,
hear.
huh?
Yeah.
The two properties sit side by side, and they have all this common elements as far as getting in and getting out. I have a number of photographs that I'd like to make available to you. I've got a packet for each of you. I think they're too small. I don't think your camera will pick those up on that, Jim. Can I pass
Sure,
these up?
certainly.
Thank you.
Our clients think that by making this presentation, they're staying in consistency with the overall plan in Murraysville. The Fox property, if you look at Exhibit P1, we've marked it with the name Fox. They're located right on the corner of Lillian and Route 22. Both properties have direct access to Route 22. They're in a mixed-use business development, and we believe from having looked at this pretty closely that they're consistent with everything else that's in the area. First of all, on the DiBiase property, they're located right beside the large car dealership, Choice, that's in the area. And in the DiBiase property, if you look at the, well, let me step back. The Exhibit P2 and Exhibit P3 are showing pictures of the Fox property. And you can see what's in it is a chiropractor, a couple of small business tenants, and again, it's got the ability to access Route 22 from the property. And the DiBiase property, which sits right next door to it, is shown on the exhibits P4 and P9. And there's a small strip center there where Donna Lynn's Pizza is located, Jackson Hewitt. I think all of these are probably very familiar to all of you. And I see Jim has it up on the screen. The DiBiase property is the one to the right. There are two buildings on the property. One of them used to be the swimming pool and spa sales group. It's now a floor covering company that sells carpeting, tile, that sort of thing. And all the tenants that are in there have been there for quite a while. One of the things that we wanted to point out is that if we look at the neighborhood, you can't see it on your drawing, but to the right is where the car dealership is located. That's Choice Car Dealership. If you come down the highway, you have the Howard Hanna building with the parking lot. And then the things that flesh out in between, first of all, directly across Lillian Avenue, the building you see there at the very front is it's a realty company, Choice. And as you proceed back the street, the building on the right after the open area is it's a settlement company and a mortgage broker. You have the funeral home right across the street from them. There's also a hairdresser there. So we've got a lot of commercial uses here, including the property to the back, which is an insurance company. And all the way to the back to the rear is the Spagnol facility, which is a large commercial warehouse. So when we take these things into consideration, we think that what we have is bordering on the B type use. I know with Dr. DiBiase, he's thinking of a sale in the near future, and he'd like to keep his options open, and it would give him more options if he had the B zoning. So the commercial corridor that we're talking about, the area that's open up through here is compatible with the development plan. And I think in many, many ways, this request is very similar to the one that was approved for the Choice Auto Sales, Loyal Canna, Standard Bank, the group in that area. So with that said, we'd open it up if you have any questions, but we'd like to encourage you to approve the requests from both parties.
Members of the Planning Commission, any comments or questions this time?
Not me.
Members of the audience, anyone have any comments, questions? I assume that what we're doing here, since Mr. Hammond is representing both DBSE and Fox Jr., we are sort of combining the public hearing on Z422 and Z522.
We're trying to make
Correct.
it
They were
easy
two
on you.
separate applications.
They're two separate applications, but the public hearing we're talking about here
Both.
tonight is both applications. So again, anyone from the audience have any comments on these applications? Okay. Jane?
Make a motion to close the public hearing for both Z422 and Z522.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hammond.
Excuse me.
I'd like to just make a comment for the public. The next step, these folks have, that you've heard and will hear tonight, this is the first step, this public hearing before the Planning Commission. The next step will be a public hearing before the Murraysville Council. And at that time, we will make a recommendation in between there as to whether or not we think this is appropriate. We are a recommending body only. Council has the final decision on that. They will have a public hearing and then make a decision. That is the step in the land use part of this. The actual site plan itself, if you'll notice, Mr. Ficione probably had the most detailed set of plans tonight, but these, before these projects get into development, there will be a lot more discussions and meetings with each one. They have to submit a full site plan development. So just so the audience is aware of all the steps that need to go through. The next hearing is that of Z222, Presbyterian Redstone Senior Care for the rezone 36.3 acres on Klein Hollow Road from R2 to R3. Gentlemen, I need to remind you, please use the microphone before the lady comes through the door and hollers at me again.
Okay. Good evening. I'm John Dixon. I serve as president and CEO of Redstone Presbyterian Senior Care. Had that great honor, excuse me, for 21 years now, and I celebrate 40 years in the post-acute industry. With me tonight is Jonathan Garchewski from Gateway Engineers, who you've heard from before, and corporate counsel Dan Hudak. We actually have a board member here this evening, Keith Langston. Just a little bit background about Redstone, if you're not familiar. We are a 501c3 nonprofit continuing care organization that was established back in 1982. We have three communities, Murraysville, obviously, Greensburg, and North Huntington, providing skilled services in Greensburg, consisting of 77 beds. We have personal care units, a total of 133, and independent living units at 260. We have villa homes in our North Huntington campus, consisting of 28, and 19 condominium units that we own from Redmont Village in Greensburg, and we manage that campus as well. And the total units owned or managed are 548 units. In addition to operating our campuses and other property holdings, we operate a management company, staffing agency, construction company, and a home and community-based services organization known as Redstone at Home. I'm sure you've seen those vehicles in this community. On the 5th of July, our application packet for rezoning parcel 13, consisting of 36.3 acres from R2 to R3, was submitted for consideration and for which we are here this evening to present. The application packet contains a narrative of key points identifying the justifications for our rezoning requests and how it is consistent with the 5 goals of the comprehensive plan. The justification narrative previews consistency to land development goals that a zoning change would not alter the nature of the neighborhood but improve its quality. The zoning change would be seen as a responsible development and would not create a strain on existing infrastructure or public services. This development, as stated previously in our presentation before the Planning Commission, would not be exempt from property taxes. I can't emphasize that enough. The revised site plan that we have submitted consists of 4 complexes of 26 units in each building for a total of 104 apartments. The design for those complexes would be a Frank Lloyd Wright style that we are planning. That would also include a clubhouse, a small maintenance garage, and space on parcel 13 with very generous setbacks to neighborhood properties. The property also would not be clear cut of trees to maintain the beauty of the land. In 1998 through 1999, there was a tremendous human good that was displayed when this municipality of Murraysville approved the development of a Redstone Highlands campus that consisted of 90 independent living units, 44 personal care units. For 21 years now, we have been serving this community and are recognized as a high-quality provider. In 2007, we purchased a 38-acre tract of land for $1.5 million, or precisely $1,150,000, of the intentional purpose to expand, with the intentional purpose to expand our mission in Murraysville. We hope this evening the members of the Planning Commission will again display good human good as to provide a recommendation to Council for a public hearing for our zoning change request. I have a couple packet informations that I would like to give members of the Planning Commission. What this highlights is the sophistication of our organization, of our C-suite officers. We'd also like the opportunity to invite any members of the Planning Commission to our campus in Murraysville. If you've never had the opportunity to visit that campus, to just see what a lovely addition this is to your community. Jonathan, do you want to, or Dan, I think it is Dan. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening again. My name is Jonathan Garcheski with Gateway Engineers. Garcheski is G-A-R, C as in Charles, Z as in Zebra, E as in Edward, W-S-K-I. I'm project manager with Gateway Engineers, civil engineering consultant for Redstone Highlands. As seen previously before your board, we were here several times discussing the current campus and the vacant property to the east. As Mr. Dixon mentioned, parcel 13, roughly 36 acres in size. Currently the parcel is zoned R2. The intended use of the property are garden apartments. As discussed previously, garden apartments could be built on the property under the conditional use process. However, as discussed before, the conditional use process only allotted a total of 49 units on the property. That type of a development is economically infeasible for Redstone to move forward with. Therefore, the next avenue where we're before you tonight is to rezone the property from R2 to R3 zoning, which would allow the 4 units or the 4 buildings or the 104 total units plus clubhouse and maintenance building, as Mr. Dixon had mentioned. We do realize that going from an R2 to an R3 zoning, there are changes in setbacks, front yards, lot width requirements, and minimum lot sizes. However, this will remain one parcel in size and does allow for the use of garden apartments to be built under state zoning requirements. The change from R2 to R3, the allowances for lot sizes, setbacks, and lot width and that such is reduced going for single-family developments. For example, as a single-family development within the R2 zoning district, you could have the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. R3 is 10,000 square feet. The minimum lot frontage for single families in the R2 is 54 linear feet or 45 linear feet in the R3 zoning district. Again, you can see that there's a reduction in those requirements. However, with the use intended as garden apartments, the zoning requirements are actually greater within the R3 zoning district. For example, the minimum lot width, again, is 90 feet in the R2, and within the R3 for garden apartments, it is 200 feet. The minimum front yard in R2 is 40, and in R3 for garden apartments, it's 50 feet. And the rear yard, for example, within the R2 zoning district is 30 feet for single families. However, in the R3 zoning district for garden apartments, that rear yard is 50 feet. So in that regard, going from the R2 to the R3 for the intended use of a garden apartment, the required zoning requirements are actually more restrictive than the R2. With that being said, I just have a few exhibits to go over. Mr. Morrison, if you could show the overhead camera. Perfect. So this is an exhibit of the existing property. Over here on this side is the existing Redstone campus with access to Klein Hollow Road. And the property highlighted in blue is the parcel 13, which is in question to be rezoned from R2 to R3. As Mr. Dixon mentioned, the entire property is essentially wooded in cover and abuts the properties to the south, connecting with the adjacent connections to Apache Lane and Sequoia Court. Here's a blow-up copy of the municipal zoning map. The current Redstone campus is in purple in color and is currently zoned R3. And the area to the east is blue in color, and that is currently zoned R2. And the parcel in question, parcel 13, is in the black bolded line and crosshatched, and that is the area we're requesting to be rezoned from R2 to R3. Throughout the course of the processes that we've been before you, as the currently zoned property is R2, this would be the minimum footprint area to be developed as the garden apartments. Again, this is the 2 apartment buildings with 24 units in each, allotting the potential possibility of 48 units along with the clubhouse. Throughout the previous processes, we also looked at the conventional zoning possibility of this piece of property, ensuring that the 49 units could be built on the property. And you can see on this on this plan and exhibit, we're showing vast disturbance of the entire property. This meets the minimum lot size requirements, minimum setback requirements within the R2 zoning district for a single family development. Again, this is a 49 unit development where we would be connecting to the property to the south along Sequoia Court, as well as providing a small cul-de-sac street off of Klein Hollow Road.
And, excuse me, that plan is based on R2 zoning?
That is correct. Zoning. This is related to the R2 zoning. This was what we provided to Planning Commission last year when we were evaluating the potential development of the property as garden apartments.
Okay.
With that process, and the reason why we're here tonight, is to utilize rezoning this piece of property to R3, which would allow a more denser development. With that in mind, the potential development for an R3 zoning district allows a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. And with that in mind, for this piece of property at 36 acres, we would be able to yield 214 units, utilizing the garden apartment. However, as stated by Mr. Dixon, and to be environmentally conscious to the entire property as well as to the surrounding community, we are only proposing to develop this site in 4 phases, constructing and maintaining access within the current Redstone Highlands development, basically coming up into the site with phase 1 with a parking area, a clubhouse, and one of the 26 apartment buildings. And then ultimately moving into future phases of development, constructing 1 building in phases 2 and 3. Phase 4, we would be building that building as well as a future maintenance garage for the facility. And again, with a maximum potential possibility of being proposed of 104 total units, well below the maximum of 214 units.
Anything else, sir?
Nothing for me right now.
Good evening. My name's Dan Hudock, H-U-D-O-C-K. Just a couple points. One is about spot zoning. You've heard that tonight. It's a fear every time somebody comes before you and asks about a zoning change. Are you being asked to do something that really you shouldn't do, that is not permitted under the law? And that is really a question of whether a property is being unjustifiably different from similar surrounding land, thus creating an island having no relevant difference from its neighbors. Well, here you already saw the map. You saw the purple R3. We're asking to take the adjoining property, change it to R3 for a development that's been there more than 20 years. And you have a track record with this property owner and operator. So there's certainly no spot zoning when really you're just making it in conformity with its neighboring property. The other point is that the existing R2 uses that Redstone could develop its property under your zoning ordinance, a lot of those uses have more impact and seem less in line with the neighborhood. For example, in R2, you're allowed animal husbandry, a cemetery, child care center, a church, a daycare center, an essential services building, an essential services facility, a garden nursery, gas and oil extraction uses, mineral removal or mining uses, a mineral removal structure, a municipal facility, a nursing home, a personal care boarding home, a recreational membership club, a school, telecommunications towers, antenna, or buildings. So if this property were not changed at all, there would be uses that would seem to be more impactful on the neighboring area than what is proposed tonight, these garden apartments adjoining the existing Redstone campus.
I have a question.
Yes.
All those uses that you listed, are those permitted uses or conditional uses?
A lot of those are conditional, yes. So
What's-
you could place conditions on them.
What's the permitted uses?
I don't have the chart in front of me.
Single family, minor forestry.
Jim, I would assume most of those uses that were just read off
They're
as
conditional.
conditional uses in R2 would also be conditional uses in R3, I would assume. Because it's less density.
R3's higher. than-
Agriculture.
I mean, higher density, that's what I mean.
Those are the permitted uses.
Okay. Just so the audience understands, everything he said are conditional uses. You don't have the right out of the gate to do all those things. You'd have to come before Planning Commission and Council, and it would be conditional use, just so everybody understands.
Gentlemen, are you done with your
Yes.
presentation? Mr. Dixon?
I would just, and I'll get in front of the mic. I would just like to thank everybody for this opportunity. You know, I served on the Planning Commission in the city of Delaware, Ohio, which is Delaware County, which is north of Franklin County out of Columbus, Ohio. And at that point in time, when I sat on council, Delaware County was the fastest growing county in the country, and saw a lot of things, you know, come through and pass through, and the time that was spent to make those determinations. But I always wanted to know who are the people really coming into the community, and you know, what are their abilities. That was the reason why I gave you the senior management bios this evening, to give you an idea of the strength of this organization. If you haven't, you know, understood what this organization is all about for the last 20 years. We also, this year, we're on track to provide $600,000 of benevolent care. So if you don't know what benevolent care is for those individuals who have run out of money. The difference between a for-profit and a not-for-profit is a for-profit discharges people when they can't pay anymore. Not-for-profit does not do that. So we are, again, providing some very good human good to the individuals of your community. The $600,000 is the cost across our system. But that cost has gone up to $1 million at times in this organization. And that's why we have the designation as a 501c3 in what we do as an organization. So I think that's important for the commission to know and for the community to know and the people in this room this evening to know as well.
I have a question, sir. You indicated that that this section that you would be paying municipal taxes and school taxes on?
Yes.
How is
how's
that
that work?
different from your 501c3 organization?
Well, as an organization, if we go back and we look at when we filed for the pilot agreement that we did in Westmoreland County, which included Murraysville, we did that because of an existing law that was in place that we reviewed and looked at. So we were able to apply for that. You can set the standard to pay property taxes on that. We're offering up front. We're not offering to seek a pilot in any regard. We're offering to pay property taxes. These are independent units. Typically, when you have nursing, personal care, those types of entities, that's where the request for tax exemption comes in. The reason for that is that we operate based upon what we receive either in Medicare or Medicaid, and primarily Medicaid for individuals who have run out of money, or people who outlive their resources living in personal care or independent living. Again, that cost to us at points of time were $1 million. So, you know, the property tax exemption that we sought helped offset that loss. Just recently, in Pennsylvania, they approved an increase in the Medicaid rate. That Medicaid rate had not moved the needle at all for 8 years. So, you know, consider looking at what healthcare costs are. I mean, if you look at what we're paying now in the grocery store, imagine what we're paying for labor in our industry. So, you know, that pilot that received helped us to help maintain what we needed to do and provide good benevolent care and services. Again, we're not asking for that for this application.
How many residents are in the current facility?
Well, system-wide,
Murraysville.
Huh?
Murraysville.
I'm trying to think what the census is right now. I can't recite it right off the top of my head, Jim, I'm sorry.
What would you say the percentage of those are Murraysville residents?
That are what?
Murraysville residents that originated, from
pretty much all of them.
100%.
Not 100%, no. I'd be remiss if
Pretty much 75%.
somewhere around there. I can get you that number.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and the people that are living there are coming back because a lot of times their children are living in the community. So that's the attraction.
Okay. All done, gentlemen. Thank you.
Can I just make one?
Yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
As you might know, all property is taxed unless you apply for an exemption. So even though we are a nonprofit, it would be taxable as it is today. I believe it's taxable because it's just vacant land that isn't used.
But you could apply for it later.
Right, but Mr. Dixon's saying that they will not do so. And then the pilot agreement is payment in lieu of taxes agreement, which was entered into with the school district and the municipality in recognition of the municipal services we receive. So just wanted to address that.
Thank you. Hey, we have a number of people that have signed up. Excuse me, any members of the Planning Commission have any comments or questions at this time?
Nope.
Okay, how about if I just call, well, you got your hand up back there, sir. Come on, come forward. Come forward and use the microphone. Please give us your name and address.
It's like the Price is Right.
Yes, you have to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Vito Cedro. I live at 2930 Arrowhead Court, and I've been a resident there for since 1983.
Could you spell your name for the record, please?
C is in cat, E-D-R-O. Surname is Roman numeral 3. Okay. I recall from the previous parts of the hearing that you allowed people to ask questions about the information that was given by the applicant. So I was wondering if I could ask those questions first, go sit down, and then come back later for any comments.
Well, do you have questions
Yes, I
you
have,
would like
I have questions for the,
the applicant?
yes, okay.
Go ahead and
These are
read your
informational
questions off. I don't, we're not going to have a debate here tonight.
No, no, okay.
But go ahead and ask your questions.
The first time, I just wanted to confirm, you said, I believe you said in 2007, you bought the property that's being requested to rezone, for $1.5 million?
Yeah, please use the microphone.
Yeah, you have to speak into the microphone
I'm
so that the
sorry.
people
Okay.
watching on TV
All right.
can hear you.
Okay. Did you say that in 2007, you bought the property that is being requested to be rezoned for $1.5 million?
You'd have to use the microphone.
I'm sorry, okay, 1.15, okay. The second question I have is that, and this I guess is for perhaps the city, the engineer, how much frontage does a property have on Klein Hollow Road?
The property frontage along Klein Hollow for parcel 13 is roughly 280 lineal feet.
Okay, okay, thank you. Then the third question in the, question. It was not clear in your map, sitting in the back, how many access points there were in the new plan for 104 units. By access points, where the roads going in and out from the new proposed plan were.
Absolutely. Just pointing out on the plan that's up here, the existing access for the Redstone development is located right here on Klein Hollow. All points of access and entry into the new development would be through that current existing access onto Klein Hollow. There would be no new road connections onto Klein Hollow, Apache Court, or Apache Lane, nor Socorro Court.
Okay. And just to follow up on that, I'm reading from the minutes of the, I believe it was the August Planning Commission meeting. The question was asked by the Planning Commission if access by emergency vehicle has been looked into, and it was the response is that would be looked into when they submit the site plan. Were any conversations held with the local EM?
There were no conversations held with EMT. However, we did investigate the portion of the frontage along Klein Hollow Road for emergency access points, and site distance does exist looking in both directions along Klein Hollow Road in the event emergency management systems would require or necessitate an emergency access only location.
So does that suggest, say then you would not need to connect into Sequoia for another emergency access route?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay, all right. And then the final question, I guess, is for the owners of Redstone. Again, in these minutes, it said that these units would be, these independent units would be age restricted, ages 55 and up.
Yeah, that's corrected.
Okay.
Yep.
And my follow-up question to that is, it wasn't clear from the minutes, does that mean if someone buys into those units, are they in essence buying into the long-term Redstone care plan?
Yep. So these units are supported by entrance fees, and the entrance fee is paid, and then that gives an individual a priority access into the other levels of care.
Okay. So in essence, it's the same covenant, so to speak, as people who bought into the independent units in the original plan.
That's correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Questions?
Yes, ma'am, come forward. Yes, you are. Well, you're not Harold or Andy.
I'm Stephanie Wedge. Stephanie Wedge. I live at 5055 Sequoia Court, and I'm here representing many of the other people that live in Mystic Hills. That's what's here today. I want to mention that we were at the August meeting and at the March meeting. I've met both Mr. Dixon and I can't say your last name. I'm sorry. It's Polish. That's all I know. And they've taken our feedback and our input. And tonight I heard they're moving forward with some of the plans that support us, but I still did hear the word of access to Sequoia Court more towards the R2. That makes me more nervous than anything. But we would like to just talk very quickly. Mr. Morris, this is our picture here. Can you see that?
You can bring it up on the screen, yeah. They'll bring it up.
Can you do that? So again, we're here to support what your long-term vision is and your home good, your good for the home comment and so forth and so on. We just want to make sure that we preserve our neighborhood. And when I get the picture up here, I'll show you how small we are and compared to this. So this is us right here. This is the Sequoia Court Arrowhead an Apache group right here. So you can see we're a small piece of the bigger picture. Thank you very much. And that kind of goes together with what we're talking about. We have about 65 homes in our community. Our average home is 60 years old. We have 35 children. 2 of them are special needs. We have 4 dead ends. 4 dead ends. No cul-de-sacs, 4 dead ends. And with our kids play in the street, they catch the bus. The parents get a lot of, what do you call those things, miles on their Apple watches and so forth. We are a very closed-in community, and we would like to keep that through whatever the final process is through this zoning committee and the board, where you finally decide. Again, we attended both meetings. We understood that you needed a topology assessment at that time, and also the financial assessment. It sounds like you have done the financial assessment, and you need this to be R3 to continue with your further plan. So that just brings us to our 3 concerns, our main concerns as the Mystic Hills team here. Number 1, if there is not, well, you have financially justified it, but if you choose not to develop, the next developer could do all those things that this other gentleman just mentioned of, whether they're conditional or not. We don't like that. The second point is we understand it's not your intention to open up any of our 4 dead ends. This is our small, closed-in community. We don't want Amazon trucks and emergency vehicles and UPSs. We have a water system going on right now, and people are like livid with all the traffic going through there now. It would only be 3 times worse if they built 122 homes. So whatever your final project is, we would really like no access, no connection to any of our 4 dead ends. Safety issues and a way of life. I'm sorry, I heard some things I liked tonight and some things I didn't like, so I'm a little bit nervous right now. The last thing is, you probably know, FTMSA is going through a major sewage upgrade in our plant, major, and it's supporting the 65 homes that are there. We found out very recently, the project manager and his team are doing a fabulous job, but our water lines are crumbling. It is not going to be part of the initial FTMSA project, it would be in another project. If your development is dependent on our infrastructure, you're going to triple the capacity right now that it's planned for. I don't know what that is. It's not part of your plan, wasn't communicated, but we are already hurting, and if you are depending on that infrastructure for water and sewage, that poses another risk for our way of life. We've lost our water 6 times in 3 weeks. Who knows how many more times it would be lost. And that's it. We have a petition. I gave it to Mr. Morrison. Many of the 95 people that have signed it are here tonight. Again, our main concerns are don't open our roads, please. What's the effect on the infrastructure? And if you can't financially justify who you might sell it to and what their intentions might be. And that's it.
Ma'am, may I ask you a question? You
Yes.
indicated that you've lost water 6 times, and these primarily breaks in the lines when the sewer contractors were going through?
What we've heard from our project manager, who actually lives on our street, as they're placing the new sewage lines, and we're talking holes probably as big as half of this room, they're huge. Even though they're 20 to 30 feet away from the water lines, the pressure on the supply and the work that they're doing is crumbling the lines. We've had the water company there we've been out for 8 to 10 hours, so I don't know the detail behind it, but they said that they would like to replace them at the same time, but it wasn't feasibly possible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any questions for me from the council?
Nope.
No? Any questions from the Redstone team? No?
Anyone else? We've got 3 more people signed up here. Mr. Seitz, Mr. Lester, and Sodero.
Name, rank, serial number.
Andy Seitz.
Okay.
What's your address?
4971 Klein Hollow Road.
Okay.
I speak for the people who are on the other side of their plan and would rather have that road somewhere else. The truth of the matter is after seeing the plan laid out as it is tonight, I find it even more disturbing than when I initially heard about the plan. You know, I currently live in that house right adjacent to their property in on the corner of their driveway and their property.
Okay.
That's my house. So I've lived there for 17 years and you know I quit counting how many accidents I see pulling in and out of that driveway. It's on a blind curve coming up that hill, And it should have never been put there in the first place. That access, if you double that access by putting all this on top of it, is going to be incredibly bad. On top of that, you know, you're talking about housing developments up the hill that's all going to come down that hill. You know, all those people that they're talking about, the 48 lots or whatever up the hill in the park, that's all going to come right down Klein Hollow Road. It's an extremely busy road as it is right now. And like I said, I've quit counting the accidents I've seen on that corner. The other thing that you know that worries me about the development of the whole thing is the infrastructure of the thing. One of the things I've witnessed whilst living there was when the gas line broke behind the Panera and they blew the valve and the gasoline spill. They had to evacuate that building. Okay, they brought ambulances from Franklin, Pennsylvania. That's 2 hours away. It took them 6 or 8 hours to get the people out of that building. Now, that wasn't their fault. They didn't cause the problem. But if something like that happens, they don't have the manpower, the capacity of Murraysville to move the people out of there in a safe manner. So if you put another 104 people up that hill on the same driveway doing the same thing, it's just dangerous as far as I'm concerned. You know, they assessed the tax thing. I remember when they, you know, got the nonprofit tax thing, and that was one of the things I was going to bring up. But they say they're going to pay the tax on it, so that's off my list of things. But you know, the safety and that driveway, I think, are just paramount. And he said, come visit the campus. Go visit that campus. Come around that curve and see how fast that driveway comes up on you, and you will see it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience?
Not as tall as Andy. My name's Harold Lester. I'm 4795 Klein Hollow Road, adjacent to the property. Many of my questions were answered through the Redstone people and also the young lady back here. I don't know her, but she answered a lot of my questions too. One thing I would like, could I get a copy of that drawing that you had showing the apartments, the R3 building that you're going to be doing, that shows the apartments? The actual structure itself? Well, no, the layout of the plan. Site plan? Yeah, this here. Could I get a copy of that? Okay. Okay, another thing is, I spent a lot of time looking at the vision plan. It was adopted in 2015. It concerned many things about Murraysville and what they wanted to do in the next 10 years. One of the biggest things they said was, the vision plan states that we must enhance the community's commitment to quality education, open spaces, physical responsibility, responsible development, and business opportunity. It also said, Murraysville is best characterized by large residential lot sizes and retention of its wooded hillsides and valleys. That comes right from your 2015 vision plan. And those wooded hillsides and valleys are on Klein Hollow Road behind where me and Andy live. And I would hate to see them disturbed. We can sit on our back patio and we can watch bats flying around. We can watch owls as they go after chipmunks and squirrels. We can sit there and see the North Star, the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, and the space station, the International Space Station, fly overhead. If we have apartment buildings built behind us with all that light, that, as far as I'm concerned, is light pollution, and we're not going to see any of that, neither me or any of our neighbors. So I would just like, I have a lot of other things I was going to talk about, but 3 minutes does not give me enough time. So what I'd like to do is clean up my notes and send a copy of them to each of you if I could. I have your email address. So before you would make a recommendation, either positive or negative, and send it on to full council, I wish that you would read this, study it, think about my concerns, and also the vision statements. It's very, very eye-opening.
You have all our email addresses, sir?
I think I have them all from the
They're on
website.
You can,
Murraysville
if not,
website.
send them to Mr. Morris and he'll distribute them to us.
Yeah, I will do that. Thank you very much. The vision statement also says, two things that were interesting. One, you seek community participation. I appreciate the fact that we can come here and tell you our concerns. And also it says there's no single way to do things. You have to keep thinking and keep doing things. So I want to keep thinking about things. Can we do something different? Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make a comment? Yes, sir. Join the
Dave
crowd.
Finley. I live at 5043 Sequoia Court. I just had a question for the Redstone folks. When you bought that property in 2007 for $1.1 million, and it was a rural 2 or an R2, you know, what were your plans for the R2 development, if any, or was it just to wait and then, you know, go through this process to get to an R3?
Yeah, when we purchased the land, the intent was to land bank it until at a time we had a decision on what type of development we were going to do. So if you look at what happens in the senior care industry, if you follow that, which I'm sure you don't, you know, you're finding that sponsors like Redstone are really not expanding in skilled nursing. And the reason for that is that the reimbursement's horrible. So you're seeing a lot of movement of home and community-based services. But there is a big uplift in regards to independent living. The reason being is the cost to operate is a lot different than running a skilled nursing facility and or running a personal care facility. Labor, there's less labor involved. You see now recruitments of nurses and things like that going on. We had DNA in here tonight. DNA is a consulting organization or an agency, you know, where they're promoting, you know, $65, $75, $95 an hour, you know, for nursing services. So, you know, the market has shifted completely in regards to need and direction and financing. So, you know, it's a timing of financing availability, where we stand with our investments and, you know, looking at a market study that says there's a need in the area for these types of units. Again, very well-designed units. It'll be a complement to the community. We're not going to clear-cut the property at all. We're going to maintain excellent setbacks, more than what's required, and we will preserve the property and the trees. Yeah, well, yeah. So, no, well, so we originally, if you remember what we were promoting tonight, the original plan was to develop cottages or villa homes. But the site development costs were so high, it economically didn't make any sense. So when we determined what the site development costs were on that property, even before we put a structure on that property, the cost on a single basis per lot was $400,000. So that would have pushed a villa program, an entrance fee up to $650,000. I said, there's no way that's going to get supported in this community. But then I find there's some entrance fees or costs like that going on in the community or proposed to be in the community. So, but that wasn't what we wanted to do. That wasn't our desire. Our desire was to try to keep it to a middle market type of product for individuals.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Come up and use the mic, please.
I just want to say one more thing.
Wait, what? Give us your name again, sir.
Sorry. I just want to say one more thing. Based on what he's talking about, the finances and stuff. My parents currently live at the Redstone in North Huntington, so I'm well aware of who they are and what they do, okay? But their entrance fee to their house was $600,000, and he's saying this is unreasonable, okay? They bought it like 4 years ago, and that's what they paid for their little villa house. So he's saying that's unreasonable in Murrysville, but they're currently selling them for that, so.
Okay, all right. So, does anyone else have any other comments or What's to make to the planning commission?
Got to come up. Jeez.
Again, my name is Vito Cedro. This question is, I guess, for the Planning Commission. If the property were to be rezoned to R3 for the use intended by Redstone, if Redstone later decided not to develop the property according to that rezoning and sell the property, would the property revert back to R2 or would remain R3?
Would remain R3.
All right, well, that obviously, I think, would be a big concern for everyone in Klein Hollow as well as Arrowhead Court. So in other words, once it goes R3, unless there's some special covenant between...
Not allowed to contract zone in Pennsylvania.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Anyone else? All right.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing on Z222 Redstone Presbyterian Senior Care.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Morrison, do we have any other business tonight?
A couple of questions. Does council or does the planning commission want these 4 rezonings to come back to the next meeting for recommendation?
When's the next meeting?
When's the next meeting?
25th.
25th. I don't think
I
that
will
gives
not be
enough.
here.
Okay, I won't be here either.
I guess we're not having a meeting on the 25th either.
Probably not.
All right, so it would be November 11th,
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
or November 8th, I'm sorry.
Okay. And I'd like to thank the audience members for
Thank you very
coming out
much.
tonight. Appreciate it, and for the presentations by everyone else. If there's nothing else, we'll have entertain a
Motion to close the
adjourn.
meeting?
Well, what do you want? Do you want to bring it back on November?
November, yes.
Okay. We have DNA site plan, land development coming back.
Yes.
And will we adjourn?
I made a motion.
Oh, you made a motion.
I made a motion.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.